Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. In today's Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is having a great day. Today's daily verse is going to come from Mark chapter 9. And we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 9, verse 24. But I want to give a little bit of context for the verse this time because it kind of takes place in the middle of a story. And so we're going to read through the story, and then I'm going to talk about this verse in particular. So we're going to start back up in verse 14. It says, "When they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and the teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. 'What are you arguing with them about?' he asked. A man in the crowd answered, 'Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him on the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not.' 'O unbelieving generation,' Jesus replied, 'how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me.' So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, 'How long has he been like this?' 'From childhood,' he answered. 'It has often thrown him into the fire or the water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us.' 'If you can,' said Jesus. 'Everything is possible for him who believes.' Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, 'I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief.' When Jesus saw the crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the evil spirit. 'You deaf and mute spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again.' The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, 'He's dead.' But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up to his feet and stood. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, 'Why couldn't we drive it out?' He replied, 'This kind can only come out only by prayer.'" There's actually a lot that we could talk about in this story. It's a pretty jam-packed story with a lot of really interesting theological ideas. Uh, but the point that I want to hone in on is verse 24. See, the story sets up a really terrible situation. There's a boy who, from birth, has been beset by this spirit which is causing convulsions and often throws him into water or fire, things that could genuinely hurt him. And so the father, desperate to help the son, brings him to Jesus. And at first he runs into the apostles who can't quite help him. And there's another story in that. There's another lesson in that. But I love the conversation that happens between the boy's father and Jesus. Jesus asks him, "How long has this been happening?" And the father tells him, "It's been happening from birth. Please, if you can, take pity on us and help us." And you have to appreciate Jesus's response, right? You can see the frustration that Jesus has by being around these sinful, unbelieving people, right? If you can, of course I can, right? Anything is possible for him who believes. And that statement has always seemed like a little bit of a mixed bag to me, because on one hand, it's so encouraging to see that just a little bit of faith can do such powerful things. We're introduced to the idea that the faith of a mustard seed can do the impossible. And yet, I look around, and how many of us do you see doing these impossible things, right? How many of us are able to say to that mountain, "Jump into the sea," and it does, right? And I think that is the discouraging side of this. And so I really identify with Mark chapter 9, verse 24, which is the father's response. It says, "Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, 'I do believe. help me overcome my unbelief. I think that for so many of us, this is such an important prayer, right? For so many of us, we have faith, we have belief, but it's foolish of us to think that we don't also have unbelief, that we don't have a lack of faith, that there aren't things that we are truly missing in, that we truly fall short in, right? To miss the mark is what it means to sin. And for any of us who sin, that shows a lack of faith. It shows a lack of belief. And so I love the Father's response of, Lord, I believe. I truly, truly believe. Help me with that last little bit. Help me with that part of me, no matter how big it is, which just can't quite take that last step. And you'll notice that there's no rebuke about that. Jesus doesn't get on to him for his unbelief or his lack of ability to take that last step. Instead, he sees the situation and he heals the boy. Right? Jesus is able to meet this father where he is. And I think that that is one of the most beautiful things about Christ and about our relationship with him. We've talked about this a bit in Hebrews, which we've been going through on Sunday morning before all this happened as well. That Jesus is able to understand us. He suffered as we have suffered. And so he's able to meet us where we are without compromising, without coming down to our level. Instead, he invites us to come up to our level. He sees our unbelief. He sees our doubt, our lack of faith, and he encourages us and pushes us to grow stronger in those things. I think a lot of times Christians are afraid to use the D word, which in this case I would say is doubt. Right? But I think that it's true that Christians struggle with doubt just like anyone else does. We struggle with unbelief. We struggle with a lack of faith. And that's not something that should discourage us from pursuing Christ. But instead, it's something that we should give to Christ. It's something that should lead us to the same statement that the Father makes, the Father in the story. Lord, I believe. Please help me overcome my unbelief. I know that that is a prayer that I need to pray sometimes, and I think maybe it's a prayer that we all need to pray sometimes. I hope that this has been encouraging to you, and I hope that everybody is doing well, staying safe, and staying healthy. All right, God bless. Everybody take care.